Welcome to an Australian Living Labs Innovation Network presentation. The network aims to promote Living Labs in Australia, develop the practitioner base and foster collaboration opportunities with existing Living Labs in Europe and the Asia Pacific. You can find us more about us on the website shown, and we're also holding our second symposium on the 5th of June, co-hosted with QUT. And you can find us on Eventbrite, and both those links we'll put in this comments section below. We'd like to say a particular big thank you to Community Resourcing, who are helping us with technical support for today and for much of our other series. They have a follow-up conference on the 6th of June, Community Care Business Transformation Innovation Conference, and they've got a terrific lineup, so I highly recommend you check those guys out. And again, we'll put the links in the website below. Today we were talking with Associate Professor Michael Deswani. Michael undertakes research about digital media literacies and learning in home and school community contexts. He's the Associate Director of QUT's Digital Media Research Centre and teaches in film, television, animation discipline within QUT's Creative Industries faculty. He has two research projects, and the one we'll be talking about today is fostering digital participation through Living Labs in regional and rural Australian communities. Michael is very accomplished and has won many awards. The one that makes him coolest in my household is being invited to the Minecraft Education Summit and providing the education team with advice on the use of digital game in education. Michael is also a tremendous supporter of the network and is helping us set up the second symposium on the 5th. In this presentation, we had a small issue where it didn't record the webcam, so unfortunately you can't see Michael give the answers to the questions, but you can hear what he has to say, and I hope you can find that as informative as I did, and we hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Any lessons you'd like to pass on to other practitioners?
I think the key lesson is probably that no matter how involved you are in a community as a researcher, you could always be more involved, right? So where we have been at times frustrated, or where we have, hit stumbling blocks and so on, it has probably been because we haven't been even more deeply embedded in the community than we were. We tried very hard to recruit research assistants who were already members of the community, and that worked really well. So we had some fantastic people in both the Toowoomba region and up in Townsville who were people who had some research experience. In a couple of cases they had completed master's degrees or PhDs, who we brought on as researchers, but they also just knew the fabric of the community and they knew the right people to speak with, and they were authentic in the community as people who were already living there. So that worked really well. But even so, to see even greater levels of success, I think the more connected you can become to the community as a researcher, the better. So that's a key learning for us. There were a couple of instances where we wanted to see something happen, and in a sense, as say a representative of the project going to speak with someone who we hadn't met before, it was difficult to convince that person that this thing should be possible, for instance. So we did hit some stumbling blocks in that sense.
Okay.
So I would say, in the early stages of the project too, just doing lots and lots of publicity in the community, going around and meeting as many people as possible, certainly meeting key stakeholders from community groups and so on, to let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and to have that kind of groundswell of support from the community as a whole, if possible.
Because I'm wondering in particular with Oki, where you said there was the potential language barrier as well, what impact that had in terms of your recruitment and building trust, because that must have added another layer of complexity.
Yeah, and in fact that Living Lab is still ongoing. It hasn't reached a conclusion yet. We struggled a bit with Oki as a community to find a way into the community, to find to find kind of champions for our cause in the community, and we did. Once we spoke with people who were involved with this process of volunteering tutors for folks who were working at the abattoir, we made quite good headway in the community, and the Brazilian workers who came to the workshops were very enthusiastic, and you know there was a slight language barrier there. In some cases, the workers' children came along and interpreted for us in the meeting and that kind of thing. But yeah, certainly, and we were lucky enough too to be working with Dr. Margaret Kettle, who's one of our research colleagues here at QUT, who is a specialist in English as a second language education. So you know she works in this space all the time. So you know it wasn't once we identified the group we wanted to work with, things went quite smoothly. But it was initially difficult to kind of find a group to work with in Oki, I would say.
Great, thank you. I think that's going to be of interest to a lot of people who are going to be in similar sort of situations. Yeah. That kind of lesson.
I will say too, if you don't mind me jumping in, the group the group we found it most difficult to recruit actually was teenagers.
Right. Okay.
So I've worked lots with teenagers in other projects, mostly in school-based projects. But in this project we had always imagined that we would do some really terrific stuff at the community level. You mentioned Minecraft earlier, so one of my kind of goals was to do something around Minecraft perhaps in the library context, to kind of push teenagers' digital literacies, not necessarily related to Minecraft because lots of teenagers would have that knowledge and skill, but to use Minecraft for other purposes, I suppose, for solving community problems, for instance, or for designing new possibilities. And it just proved to be incredibly difficult to recruit teenagers in our case, for this project. And I know in hindsight that there would be lots of strategies that I would now use to make that happen, but it was something that we kind of, to be honest, sort of failed at in some respects. And then when the momentum got going with other living labs, we just kind of pursued those and didn't kind of come back to the teenage group. Mm-hmm. So it's one limitation of what we did, and something that I would certainly try to address next time round.
I think it is interesting that as in the setting up of living labs and the nature of them, there is this aspect of not everything takes off, and you can learn so much from that in a way, but again, not always the conditions are there to accept that as a sort of legitimate outcome in some ways.
And I think in this case, the methodology itself, this idea that you're going to recruit people to work with you as co-investigators, if I was a teenager and some people from a university came along and said, we want to co-investigate with you, I might be a bit dubious about that as a teenager, or I might kind of just prefer to be doing something else with my spare time, So I guess in a sense, kind of, this is where the tension around intervention, I guess, is there, right? So, young people, teenagers might not see that there's a need for any kind of intervention in terms of their digital practice or what they do with their spare time and so on. Whereas, if you're going to speak with other people who have a very specific need and that they've identified for themselves, then they're more likely to want to work with you.